Luke, back again for our fades and sleepers for this week's Draftkings contest. We're bringing it back for the Tour Championship, and honestly, this video has been an absolute banger our last few weeks. Last week, Patrick Cantlay was one of our sleeper picks, ended up coming through for the win, but it doesn't stop there. The week before that, for the Northern Trust, Tony Finau went out and did the same. So this week, we're going to be covering some of the most overhyped players in DFS. Those are going to be our fades, of course, as well as some of the guys being a little bit overlooked, our sleeper picks. Essentially, some of the guys, our fades, are going to be the guys that kill you in DFS, some of the chalk bombs that end up either missing a cut in most weeks or this week end up finishing in the bottom 10 finishers. We're also going to be going over our sleeper picks, which could potentially win someone $100,000 in a GPP this week. Some of the guys priced a little bit further down the board, perhaps at lower ownership as well, that I think are going to come through for you on DraftKings. Again, last week we had Patrick Cantlay. We're looking to build on that momentum. So without further delay, let's hop right into the fades for the Tour Championship. We're kicking off our fades at number 3 with good old JT. He's never the move when he's chalky for DFS. You're really looking to play JT when he's a leverage play, coming in with a little bit low ownership. He's somebody who's an absolute wizard from tee to green, has a lot of volatility and upside. But at an event like the Tour Championship, where we have essentially the 30 best players in the world, I don't love JT. He's coming in at over 28% ownership, at 28.5%, starting at just -4. And that's really the beginning of the problems for JT. It's coming in at $11,000, starting at -4. He is by far the most expensive player, starting a good amount of distance back from the leaders. So I also have worries about his putting and driving accuracy at Eastlake. JT, somebody who can definitely spray the ball from time to time, but when he has it rolling, that's not an issue for him. Of late, though, it has been an issue. Over his last 24 measured rounds, he's only hitting 52% of fairways. So he's gone away with it with some easier golf courses, but down at Eastlake, where he has some gnarly Bermuda rough, some tight fairways as well, it's definitely going to cause JT some problems. The putter's obviously been an issue as well. It's been a glaring issue for quite a few years now for JT, losing 0.48 shots gained putting per round over that same stretch. And on Bermuda, you would expect him to play a little bit better as he grew up on the surface, but a deep dive into his statistics actually shows that he's worse on Bermuda than his baseline putting. So again, a lot of people are going to look for him to play better on Bermuda, but the statistics do not pan that out. Again, his approach play is world class. That's why we see him priced in the 11K range, but at 28.5% ownership, he's a relatively straightforward fade for me, even though I absolutely love him as a golfer. At number 2, we also have one of my favorite golfers in the world, poor Bryson DeChambeau. Was getting absolutely dogged on during the Sunday podcast. Azinger was throwing barbs at him. You had fans yelling in his backswing. You had the whole Brooksy thing right after, Bryson lost the golf tournament. He actually just came out the PGA Tour and said that anybody that says Brooksy now is going to be kicked out of a golf tournament, no questions asked. It's being looked at as bullying at this point. Obviously, Bryson DeChambeau's reaction after losing that golf tournament was not acceptable from him, but it's also not acceptable from the fans, right? To throw a barb at someone after they throw away more than $1 million, a ton of placement points, number 1 in the FedEx Cup, that's just not right. So I'm glad that the PGA Tour has now stepped in, kind of made this stand, said that you can't really do that. It's not fair. I think that's great for Bryson, but obviously this week at Eastlake, I don't think things are going to get much easier for him. It's a golf course that ate his lunch last year. He comes in at over $12,000 this week, over 30% ownership as well. And I really don't like the history at Eastlake. Again, it's a course with tight fairways, a lot of fairways that go left to right, have a lot of water, some hazards as well. And last year we really saw the off the tee struggles come to fruition for Bryson. Again, he's one of the longer players on tour, but he's come out and said that this golf course mitigates that length. Again, the dog legs, the fairways that are tight, all of that really takes away from somebody that just goes out and bombs the golf ball. You have to be accurate here. You have to be able to place your drives where you need to. And again, at 30% ownership, at over $12,000, you're really looking for somebody that fits all the boxes. And for me, the only box that Bryson really fits is obviously starting near the top of the leaderboard. You don't hate that. Obviously, a very solid player, one of the best players in the world. But in terms of a game theory play, in terms of a fade, he's clearly a fade at the Tour Championship. And finally, number 1, the world is at balance again. Patrick Cantlay, one of my least favorite golfers in the world, ended up being a sleeper pick last week and came through in a big way. But after gaining 14 strokes putting last week, the golf gods are definitely going to get their revenge. They're going to have something to say here at the Tour Championship. And that's not even the worst part about Patrick Cantlay this week. he comes in over $13,000 at $13,400. That is absolutely ridiculous. He's also being projected in over 40% of lineups this week. He's a clear fade for me, especially when we take a look at last year's event. Dustin Johnson was in the exact same position as Cantlay, started at -10, was well over $13,000. And guess what? Dustin Johnson, despite winning the golf tournament, did not crack the optimal lineup. Did not make enough birdies. Obviously, starting so far ahead, you don't have to play quite as aggressive. You're looking to make a lot of pars. Your birdies here and there just to post, 16, 17 under par. That's typically good enough to win this golf tournament. But for Patrick Cantlay, obviously, we're going to see some regression with that putting. He's starting out in a position where he's not going to be as aggressive as we're looking for. And at $13,400, he has to go out and score a shit ton of fantasy points to even remotely pay that off. Again, at 40% ownership, I think there's a huge edge to be had for not playing any Patrick Cantlay this week. And again, he's a fade for me to balance out the world after that sleeper pick come through. Now for our sleepers, I just want to start. Sleeper is a subjective term, especially on a week like this. There's only 30 players in the field. Your average ownership for a player is going to be 20%. So depending on their price this week, a sleeper is definitely going to be subjective. Up top, 20, even 25% ownership is more than a sleeper pick. You're looking at around 35, even 40% average ownership for those guys. And a little bit further down low, sure, you're going to find guys below 20%. So we're definitely going to have some dumpster dives further down the board. But at number 3 this week, we have Mr. Swing Out of Your Shoes, Scottie Scheffler. He absolutely dismantled Eastlake in his first trip out, which is seemingly rare for most golfers. This is a golf course that has a lot of complexities, a lot of greens with undulation, and typically we see guys their first time out struggle here. So Scottie Scheffler was not in that category, came out and absolutely just dismantled it into a top 5 finish. This week he comes in at $6,800, which is a great price tag for him, even starting at -1. He's my model's number 15 ranked play this week, and a lot of people aren't going to play him because he finds himself out of contention. But in terms of DFS, in terms of fantasy scoring, that's not necessarily as important. Again, if we take a look at the optimal lineup from last year, a lot of the players were starting at -3, -2, even par. So for Scottie Scheffler, I'm not worried about that. If he goes out and makes 15, 16 birdies this week, not only is he going to finish in the top 10, he's also going to put up a ton of fantasy points. Again, on Draftkings, you make 3.5 points for every birdie. You only get 30 extra points for finishing in first place. So again, that's 7 or 8 birdies and you've already made up those finishing position points, and he could very well go out and make 16 to 20 birdies this week. So I definitely like Scottie Scheffler's game. Again, he's somebody who has the off the tee game that I'm looking for at Eastlake, has plenty of length to take advantage of some soft conditions, also has been great with the iron play of late, gaining 0.66 shots gained approach per round over his last 24 rounds, is definitely going to put himself in plenty of opportunities to score. So at 14.7% ownership, I'm going to be owning him closer to 40, even 50% range this week to get plenty of leverage. At number 2, we have Xander Schauffele, the X-Man. He's my number 2 sleeper and might be the pivot play of the week, to be honest with you. Rory McIlroy was one of my picks for DraftKings, one of my core plays, but he's becoming even more chalky through the week. Everyone's talking about Rory McIlroy. I haven't heard anything bad said about him to this point. So Xander Schauffele, $8,900, $400 less than Rory McIlroy. He actually comes in as a better play according to my modeling. He's my number 6 ranked play this week. Rory's only number 8, and he comes in with over 15% less ownership at 23.1%. Again, last year we saw Xander absolutely take apart Eastlake, ended up being the raw strokes leader for 2020, and over his last 24 rounds has shown plenty of momentum as well, gaining half a stroke on approach per round, also gaining solidly off the tee and with the putter. And I really like the momentum we've seen with the flat stick as well. For about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, he started experimenting with the arm lock method. Didn't go very well, ended up losing quite a few strokes putting. When he ended up switching back to his conventional putting method, ended up losing strokes as well. So was in a little bit of a rough stretch there. That's why we saw some mediocre performances from the X-Man. But now that he's starting to get a little bit more comfortable with his conventional grip, he's starting to gain some momentum with it as well. I look for him to play even better and continue that ascent up the leaderboard. And at number 1, though, we have Dustin Johnson. If the past 2 weeks are any indication, DJ could very well be our 3rd winner in a row on these sleeper picks. He's starting at -3, which is a good ways back, obviously 7 strokes off the lead, but he's coming in with some of the best form, if not the best form in the entire world. He's $10,700 this week, my number 10 ranked play in my modeling, but only being owned in 18.2% ownership. So for the guys priced above $10,000. That is by far the lowest ownership number, and we're really starting to see him come into his own. Over his last 24 rounds, he's gaining across all 4 major statistical categories, which is excellent to see, something we haven't seen from DJ for quite some time. But the crazy part here is that he's gaining 0.64 shots gained putting per round. We haven't seen that since last year when he went on that amazing playoff run, capped it off with a Masters victory. So if DJ is going to start putting the ball like he was last year, we got to start watching out for him. He's only gained 0.28 shots gained off the tee per round, which is much less than what he's used to. Again, we have to remember he had that horrific Northern Trust where he broke his driver, was playing with a 3-wood, had a backup driver as well that he lost a lot of strokes with. So it's a little bit misleading there. He's been much better off the tee than that number portrays to us. He's also just gaining 0.22 shots gained approach per round. A lot of that is covered up by his horrible performance at the 3M Open. He lost 6 strokes on approach there due to so many water balls. So again, that number looks a lot worse than it actually is. We saw him gain 4 to 5 strokes on approach last week. Also saw it at the Northern Trust despite some bad driving of the golf ball. So expects positive regression with the off the tee game. Again, he has his driver back in the bag. We've seen some solid approach play of late, and he's putting the ball the best that he has since his huge run last year. So we're seeing him get into very good position here. He seems to be primed for success. And at just 18% ownership, that is borderline disrespectful. Again, most of the guys priced in this range are 35, even 40% owned this week. So I absolutely love him as a leverage play. That's all I've got for the fades and sleeper picks. Let me know in the comments who your biggest fade this week is for a chance to earn a free month of my Patreon projections. On there, you'll get access to all my projections for every player in this week's field, not just the ones in the video. You'll also get access to my custom model rankings, my ownership numbers, as well as my player poll and Discord server access. I'm on the Discord. It's one of the best features of the Patreon. You can ask me questions at any time. I'll get back to you, but you also get access to the GS Loot community. We have a lot of sharp people in there. We had someone take down $33,000 last week, a couple $1,000 winners as well. So you don't just get advice from me, you also get to interact with the community. So that's also a huge benefit there. So best part is it's just $1 per month, and that's, per month, not per event. So you get access to 3 to 4 golf tournaments per month. Obviously this month for September, we're not going to have quite as many events as we're transitioning from season to season, but typically golf tournament every week, 25 cents a week. You really can't beat that kind of value. So if you don't want to wait for the contest, if you don't want to win it for free, go ahead and just check out the link in the description. Again, it's just $1 and you get access to my projections for everyone. As always, I really appreciate the viewership. It really helps me out if you also leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. It really helps me out with getting some more exposure, getting the video out there to more people. So if you could do that, would really appreciate it. And if you guys haven't already, make sure to subscribe. That way you get notified when I upload. Don't miss any content, that kind of stuff. So make sure to do that as well. So thanks again, and I'll see you guys next time for our golf videos next week, which we'll be posting on golf strategy in general. Again, we don't have a PGA Tour tournament next week, so instead of taking the week off and not putting any content out there, we're going to talk about golf strategy in general. It's been a widely requested topic. A lot of people are asking me to go into the nitty-gritty of game theory. So while we have the time, we're going to go ahead and do that. So until then, I'll see you guys next week.